The people who are worried about AI taking over are all worried about the wrong thing.
Oh.
It has already ruined people's lives in a negative way. It has been denying medical benefits to Medicare patients. It's been denying university admissions. It's been denying bank loans. All sorts of things that used to be decided by humans are now decided by an algorithm, and there's no way you can fight back against it.
That's Gary Friedman. He's a veteran of NASA. He's a tech entrepreneur and photography expert. And that's just a sample of an important discussion coming up. Stay tuned. This is a special edition of Profunded TV.
Get beyond the confusion and hype of artificial intelligence. 24 writers from around the world in different fields address the facts and concerns about AI in an easy-to-read book entitled Intelligence, Artificial versus Human, published by Dancing Elephants Press. These writers have put their concerns and observations about the impact of AI into this thoughtful and important new book. This is a level-headed, non-polarized presentation of AI technology, potential benefits to society, and the potential pitfalls. The editors of this book are Dr. Gabriella Korosi, Maryann Pelland, and Dr. Rawson.
Gary, welcome. I always privileged to have an opportunity to interview you. We've known each other now for more than 25 years, and
25 years.
I still am privileged that you even call me friend. I feel privileged. So with that in mind, I'm going to try and talk to you about a subject that's near and dear to both of us. We have spoken in the past about this book that was recently come out about AI versus HI, and you were kind enough to do a review on it. And the review I thought was pretty interesting. I want to quote something here that one of the other reviewers said, because I think it represents the average point of view about AI. It said, have you ever worried that your coffee maker could develop a mind of its own and decide to conquer the world? I think people, by and large, are so concerned about AI because it's one of those things, if you don't know something, then you're even more concerned because you're in the dark.
If you're not familiar with it, your natural tendency is to become afraid of it.
That's
And that was true even in the 1950s when all these science fiction movies with robots taking over the world. That's a natural reaction.
right. And Hollywood did a great job of instilling even more fear in people. That was wonderful. Thank
Fanning the flames. Yeah, that's what they're good at.
Yeah, they're really good at that. Well, let's change the subject just a little bit on this AI. And your review was exceptional. There were three reviewers: Leonard Tillerman, another fellow by the name of Rick Allen, and then you. And I had suggested to Gabriella, who is the publisher with Dancing Elephants Press, I had suggested that she contact you because I know of your work with JPL and I know of your science background, and you are very heavily invested in cameras, particularly Sony cameras. You've written now, what, 46 books on how to operate a Sony camera and a few others.
47 as of last week. Yes.
47. Okay, good. Well, it gets even better. So, but the point is, you've watched the evolution of cameras go from something where somebody had to put a cape over their head and essentially look through there, and then it went to a point and shoot, and now it went back to something else. So you've seen all of this, and AI is taking its role in cameras as well. So from your perspective, and I appreciate the fact that you can break things down fairly easily, talk about how AI has progressed just in the world of cameras. Let's just look at something that people can relate to, a camera.
I can go back even earlier than that because back in my NASA days, AI was such a buzzword, even back in the 1960s. And a lot of research has gone into it, and the field went absolutely nowhere until about 18 months ago. Then all of a sudden, machine learning hit the surface. And I call it machine learning. I don't like to use the word AI because there's absolutely nothing intelligent about it. You got machine learning, and it's doing pattern matching. And when you use these text interactive things, they will guess what the next word is, but there's no consciousness there. You're not actually talking to a person. As
Right.
far as photography goes, a new branch of AI, some people may know it as Midjourney, some people may know it as Stable Diffusion. What you do is you type in some words about the image you have in your mind, and it comes up with a beautiful illustration. And you can even say, make it look like a Rembrandt painting or make it look photorealistic. And it's really impressive. In the early days, there were problems, like people would have 7 fingers on a hand, or an appendage would be coming out of someone's ear, things like that. Those problems are going away, and the technology is improving quite a bit. But photographers in general, and graphic artists in particular, are really worried about job security because they're now too expensive compared to an art director who can just type in a few things and have a graphic output that's good enough. Photographers as well, who hires a photographer anymore? Who even buys cameras anymore? It's like that job is becoming like the milkman. It was great for a while, but society has moved on.
But I think, and this is just my own opinion, but I think that there's always going to be room for quality and hand-done things. For example, you can buy a Chevrolet, anybody can buy a Chevrolet, you can buy a Toyota, a Honda, or you can buy a bespoke Bentley or Rolls Royce. And there are still people that want something that's bespoke, something that's fully custom, something that's done by a craftsman.
My analogy has always been like handmade Amish furniture.
There you
There's
go.
always going to be a market for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but the photographers I speak to and other script writers for like children's television shows,
Right.
everything in television is derivative already. So it's like if you replace them with an AI program, nobody's going to notice, especially the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing that nobody's talking about. The people who are worried about AI taking over are all worried about the wrong thing.
Oh,
It has already ruined people's lives in a negative way. It has been denying medical benefits to Medicare patients. It's been denying university admissions. It's been denying bank loans. All sorts of things that used to be decided by humans are now decided by an algorithm, and there's no way you can fight back against it.
okay, let me stop you for just a minute. So for those people that don't know what an algorithm is, let's first explain what an algorithm is. An algorithm is nothing more than a set of equations that define what it is that you're looking for. In income, an input, you want a certain input. So the algorithm says, here's what you need. It's kind of like when we were doing math in high school and you got to algebra and it said X equals Y equals and that. So an algorithm is nothing more than you define what it is that you need as an input, and then the algorithm takes that and massages it and produces an output. And that massage is the equation that it uses to do that.
Excellent explanation. And the input it has is usually the things that you would fill out on a loan application, for example, or university. So it takes all that input and then it massages it and
Yep.
comes up with an answer, yes or no, denied or approved. Now, here's the other side of that. In the past, humans have always been making those decisions. But if a person was really biased, you wouldn't really be able to prove that in court. Whereas the algorithms can be. You can take this little computer running the algorithm on it, take it into a courtroom, feed it boatloads of data, and you'll be able to prove that this algorithm would approve people with Hispanic sounding names less often than this other algorithm. You can actually prove bias that way. And that's why I think one of my next business ventures is going to be starting a law firm whose job it is to sue all of these AI companies that promise the moon, and managers love it because, hey, here's this shiny AI stuff. So the AI companies come out with this really questionable technology. The managers embrace it because of cost savings. And now we need the lawyers to come in and rescue us to be able to sue these firms into accountability so that things are normal now. So the biases are gone. That's the next step. And
Well,
it'll be enhancing people's lives instead of ruining them.
one of the things that's happening with virtually every industry is something that started back, I'm going to say, well, I first started running companies in the exactly 1969 when I was 21. Back then, we just ran it. We didn't think about running things by exception. But later on, we found out that you can control things by exception. So now, today, these AI programs are doing exactly that. Not only do you give the input, but then you give the list of exceptions. If this, then, 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 so that you can go through an entire list that might define ethnicity, might define location. I remember it used to be, and still is to some degree, insurance companies, if you lived in a certain zip code, your auto insurance would be higher because based on experience, it's totally by experience. So a built-in prejudice based on
statistics. Yeah.
Just statistics. But let's draw it down to AI because I want to keep it within the confines of how AI is impacting this. AI, machine learning, as you referred to it earlier, is nothing more than what we put into it. It wouldn't exist if it didn't have human input to design it. Can we agree on that?
Let me refine that definition a little bit, because you had a lot of good conventional programming examples there. If this, that, if this, that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, all the AI programs that are out there don't have that kind of intentional programming behind it. They don't do an if then. What they do is they look at the sample data that's been fed it and tries to emulate it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no specific if then questions. This is why many of those self-driving cars, which also have an AI element to them, they're not too sure what to do if they encounter a construction site or a road closure where their maps say this road should be open. Sometimes they run right into the construction site. Sometimes they run right into a pedestrian that they weren't expecting to be there. There's no if a construction site then. There's no if a pedestrian wearing black outfit at night jumps in front of the car. There's none of that.
The design, we talked about design by exception, right? So you said that you can't do it this way. They're just using what's been done in the past to build what needs to be done going forward. But I was making the point that there's also going to have to be just as many lists of exceptions in order to more clearly define the rule.
That's absolutely right. In fact, the first generation of the AI programs didn't have enough of those exceptions in there, and so they would start to hallucinate a lot, or they would start to say things that they found online, which are really politically incorrect.
All right, let's
Now
stop.
the next generation.
Let's stop for a minute. So a hallucination is nothing more than a fabrication. If you were talking to one of your grandchildren and they said, well, Grandpa, you see, it was moved over here and done this, you would say, that is a fabricated answer. That didn't really happen. And that's what
But
the computer's doing.
Unlike the AI example, you can convince your grandchild that he's wrong. The AI has no clue that it's spitting out, very confidently, it's spitting out lies, falsehoods, misinformation, whatever it is, it doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I can show you many, many examples where I was trying to use this as a research tool, and I asked for such and such, and it would give me a whole bunch of references. Great, give me the link for this one. Here it is. The link doesn't work. Oh, sorry, here's the link. That link doesn't work either. Okay, that link works, but the references are gone. And I have a whole conversation of this. This is like the first 6 months when the first AI tools became available. They are not, I don't understand why anybody would pay monthly for a service like this, which confidently lies to you. So the
expression, confidently lies to you. Yeah. Okay, great.
Getting back to your exception handling, they are starting to build in what I call guardrails for the AI output to make sure that what it says is actually true and it doesn't make things up. And what it says also is, I want to say politically correct again, but you don't want racist answers when you're talking to a machine.
Right.
They're trying to prevent that kind of output also.
Right. Right. Well, they're trying to prevent anything that would fall in those guidelines of discrimination associated with any aspect of humanity, ethnicity, color of eyes, color of hair,
Right.
origin. It doesn't make any difference what it is.
Whether they shoot an icon or cannon,
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back, because what I'm concerned about more than anything is the various levels of the involvement of AI. So we have, I gave an example in a previous discussion that Phyllis Haynes and I had. I gave an example of the average AI is over here. This is the one that says a statement, if the temperature exceeds this, turn the air conditioning on. That's a simple little rule that makes us really comfortable. Does anybody not want that? No, I think everybody can agree. That's a good rule. I like that
Yeah.
one. But when we get over at this end that says, look, if this person moves, arrest them. Now, that's a problem, because there may be all kinds of other circumstances, and so there has to be a lot built in. And are we really ready for robots? Are we really ready for something that may approach a sentient being? Are we ready for that? I don't think so. But in the middle is the creativity, and that's the part that I'm most interested in as a writer and an author. Go ahead.
There's a Facebook meme that's been going around, people complaining that robots and AI, and we wanted robots in the future to handle dull tasks like cleaning the bathroom and scrubbing the toilets and all that. We don't want the robots taking away our creativity and leaving us to clean the toilets. This is
Right.
exactly backwards.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then I remember going back years ago, I used to own some printing companies, and I remember when computers came out in the early 80s, we started going to PCs. They said, oh my God, we will not use the amount of paper that we're using today. Those people that are selling paper and their jobs depend on forms and all this it will go away. Well, guess what? I should have invested more in paper back then.
The paperless office. The paperless office was one of those predictions that just didn't pan out. It was like when nuclear was around. Energy too cheap to meter was another one of those. Never happened.
Never happened. Yep. So getting back to this, I'm looking at AI today, and one of the reasons that so many of us got together to write that book, AI versus HI, was the idea that AI is stepping in and people can say, give me 12 reasons why management should fire anyone who doesn't meet quota. And it'll just give it to you. Doesn't mean they're right. And it doesn't mean that it will affect the company the way you intend, but it'll give you 12 reasons. Okay.
And if the manager is looking for that, then
he's got his justification and he goes on. Exactly.
It helps the poor manager. Yes.
As opposed to the guy who's creative and says, help me understand reasons why people might not make quota, and looks at it from a different perspective and thinks that through intuitively. Now, that's a different set of rules. That's a different outcome. And it's a human-based solution as opposed to a machine-based solution. You see the difference?
Well, the example you gave sounds like it requires the human manager to have an epiphany and change their behavior and asking the better question. And then it's because these AI things are just going to be tools. They're not going to go away, but they're going to be tools, and you have to be able to use them appropriately. And people are still trying to figure that one out. You were talking about sentient beings and robots handling things, and if a person moves, should they kill them? The U.S. military right now is really struggling with this because they have drones with guns on them, and you can program them in a war zone to shoot at something that has these kind of criteria. And because there's no explicit if-then statements driving this, you're never really too sure when it's going to make the decision to fire. I mean, you think you know, you can try it, but there's going to be a lot of edge cases which surprise people in the early days.
Right.
Um,
Well, that was the
that's
point of the book. The point of the book was we want human intervention. We want human intelligence involved.
in the loop.
In the loop. So just getting to your exact example, within that drone system, they have human pilots. The pilots that were involved in Iraq and involved in Afghanistan, those pilots are actually sitting here in Nevada at a secret location, and they're controlling the drones right from here, utilizing the tools that they have to see what's happening on ground. Now, the interesting thing is that they want the pilots to make the decision based on the information that they're receiving, that they can see with that drone, as opposed to the drone just saying, in general, if the uniform is this color and they have what can be identified as a weapon, kill them.
And the way they're doing it now, where you have a human making the decision, we all know that's the right way to do it. But the Army likes to experiment and push the envelope and try different things and see what's viable.
Exactly. And here's the problem that I see is that we make enough mistakes just utilizing human intelligence. It's human intelligence that creates artificial intelligence, that creates the environment in which machine learning takes place. So if we're already making enough mistakes now, how does it make that any better? It does. The answer.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And so many people, I'll use the self-driving cars as an example. Every time an accident happens, it makes headlines because it's new and they're going. But in terms of per capita, humans make a million times more lethal mistakes with cars than the automated systems do. A statistician should take all that into account and say, look, overall, the self-driving cars actually have a better track record. Nobody ever says that.
No, nor will they. It's not in their best interest to do so.
No.
Getting back to the book, because I
Yes.
think that's the point of this. The book is about AI versus HI. And the reason I gave this example of the small amount of AI here versus the large amount here is because AI versus HI is asking the question, when is it acceptable? When is it not? When should it be deployed? When shouldn't it be deployed? When we began the process, we were looking at one set of circumstances, and that is writing. So over millennia, people have written Copernicus, pick a great mind from 2,000 years ago. These people wrote things that we're still quoting today and saying, man, that was just brilliant. And it was brilliant, okay? Now, going forward, I'm not sure somebody's going to say 1,000 years from now, Gary and DR said this, and that was brilliant. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. But the point is, great things have happened with human creativity.
Right.
And if we now allow it to just be AI, is it really what we want? And so in this book, we address the idea that writers are writers when they write, and they use human intelligence, not artificial intelligence.
And the book is I gotta say it again. The book does a really good job in this regard. It's made for people who aren't too sure whether to be afraid of this new technology or not. And it emphasizes the human aspect of it, just like I was talking about handmade Amish furniture. There's always going to be a market for that.
Right.
The big danger now that a lot of people see is that people are using an AI tool called Chat GPT, where you type in something and it comes out with something else. Usually it's wrong. But they're using that to create magazine articles and newspaper articles, and that's being flooded in the internet. And then the AI programs, which use the internet for training, that sucks all that in, and it kind of dilutes the quality of literature from mankind into what AI spits out. So that's a huge problem. And this book really goes a long way to pointing out this is the way it should be.
Well,
Engineers, don't push in the other direction.
yeah. To quote Gary Friedman directly, you said, after reading this book, you will come away with a level-headed, non-polarized understanding of the technology's potential benefits to society and the potential pitfalls we must all be aware of to steer away from in technology in the right direction, be it technologically or legally. Right? So we covered all those aspects, and then you say, and you will be better armed to see through the marketing hype.
Oh, of which there is a great deal.
Oh my gosh, of course. And you talk about hallucination. I think most of it was spent on marketing. It was just unbelievable. That's unbelievable. But
Understatement of the year.
yeah, understatement of the year. We are fast coming to the end of our half hour here, Gary. And I just want to say, first of all, how grateful we are that you've spent the time doing this. I know that you're on a road trip, you and your wife, and to allow us to interrupt that time is great, and we appreciate your time. We
You're quite welcome.
appreciate your thoughts on this subject because I have known you for so many years. I know that you're a forward thinker yourself, and while our age, that's you and I, might belie that, we both tend to think in the future as opposed to the immediacy of now. And so we ask ourselves, does it apply or doesn't it apply? And how should we use it? And that's what we're trying to do in that book, is that same thing. We're trying to get people to read that, understand it relative to their circumstance, and ask themselves, is this something that I want to participate in? Is this something that I want to fear? Is it something that I want to try and control? Or is it something that I just want to understand even more?
Or invest in.
Or
That's an
invest
option.
in. Oh, there's another point. Let's talk about school for a minute. I've taught college, you've taught college, Gary. So we're both teachers. We both know how this works. And what's happening with students right now when we're giving an assignment and we say, this is what we want done, what happens when it comes back and it's essentially generated via AI? What does that look like? And what do you feel the student gained from that?
Well, the student gained an imaginary edge. They thought they were cheating the system and succeeding. I know that there have been very forward-thinking teachers who have encouraged their students to use ChatGPT if they must, but you must specify that you've done so. So that way you'll be able to, it's like citing a source in a research paper. Do so. Many teachers have been turning to other AI programs to detect whether the student used AI to generate the program. And by the way, those programs are about as reliable as the ChatGPT programs that created the paper to begin with. It's still a messy area, and but it was messy before. Before AI was introduced, many teachers would rely on a database. They would scan a student's paper, and the database would let you know where in the internet this paper appeared or something very similar to it.
Right.
So it's not a new problem. And, students will be students. There's always a way to cheat, and then it's a cat and mouse game. But there's no answer to that right now.
There is no definitive answer, but unless you're saying that the teacher has to do the definition prior to the class even beginning. Yes, we're going to have this class, and these are the rules. You can use it for this purpose. You can use it for this reason. But in the end, something has to come from the student, or what did the student gain? I'll tell you honestly, all of my education, as you know, came while I was running companies and at night. And the only reason I went to college, the only reason is I was convinced by someone else that it would make me a better thinker. I'm still questioning that to this day, but others have to judge that, not me. But I can tell you,
better thinkers are the ones that have the self-doubt. So already they succeeded.
Yeah, okay, maybe so. Maybe maybe that was the whole point.
Let me bring something up. I believe that the problem has a solution, although no one's talking about it.
All right, what?
It's an old-fashioned solution. The student turns in the paper, and then one-on-one with the teacher, you give an oral exam. Tell me about what you said. Tell me why you said so. What are your thoughts on this? That's the only way to circumvent any possible corruption that AI might enter into the equation. It's
Well,
more time consuming.
I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with that because it's too easy just to read the results of what AI generated and then use that as the basis of your answer.
Well, the teacher would know whether it's nonsense or not.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, let's hope the teacher would. Yeah, but not altogether. It's going to be a challenge from this point forward. It's not going to resolve itself. It's going to be more mired in regulation. It's going to be more mired in its use and the way it's used. All that's going to continue to be a problem for the teacher. But I think more human interaction between the teacher and the student is probably more an answer than anything else. And that couldn't hurt because there's been
Yes,
less of that over the years.
agreed.
Let's talk about one other subject for a minute. I was in healthcare for 11 years, as you know, with different companies that I had. And one of the things that we did was surgeries. We had surgery centers and so on and so forth. And robotic use for surgery is becoming more and more prevalent.
That's been happening since the 1980s. They've been
Yeah.
experimenting with it.
That's
And it's a boon to healthcare because fewer doctors can now handle more people in more remote countries than ever before. It's wonderful. Now they're talking about automating the doctor and taking the doctor out of the equation because then you can have a program doing even more patients. The jury is still out as to how effective that method's going to be, but I don't think anybody can argue that it can't hurt to try, even if it fails.
Yeah, well, it is the practice of medicine after all. So I'm pretty confident we will
right.
practice without a doubt.
I'll give you one other example. And this, I met somebody last week who was in the process, he's in the business of healthcare for a lot of the poorest countries in Africa, Uganda, Vietnam. And he tries to save as many people's lives as possible using as few resources as possible.
Yeah.
MRI machines cost tens of millions of dollars. He's working on a machine that can cost $1 million. And that might be able to put this in the poorest communities and then be able to save lives in a greater area. And the way they get the cost down was to have like a very low resolution MRI scan. The problem with that is they were going to run the low resolution result into an AI program that would upres it again based on its training data.
Right.
Not a bad idea, but like any other AI, it will sometimes hallucinate. When that happens and you get a bad diagnosis, that can mean the difference between life and death for an innocent patient.
Yep. Absolutely. And therein lies part of the problem.